All right, hello and welcome to another episode of the GCFC pod. My name is Jake. I'm here joined with Leo, Marcus, and Kyle. And today we're going to be previewing an absolutely huge game this season in the Champions League. I'm sure you can tell, Arsenal versus PSG. Now I'll kick it off. Marcus, congratulations. Yeah. He's won the ballot, and I'm assuming you'll be attending the game.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
And you got pretty decent seats as well. I think that's absolutely mega. So
I think
So I think perfect. So I think we'll just kick it off with you guys, Leo, Marcus, and Kyle as well. What have you made of Arsenal's UCL this season? You know, it's your second season back in the competition after your return last year, and it's got to be one that pleases you guys.
Do you want to go first, Leo? Or?
No, go ahead.
Yeah. Only one loss in the group stage against Inter, which was very difficult. Team we could be facing in the final if we do beat PSG. Team with, I think, the best defensive record in the competition this season. Every other game we've done quite well in. We beat PSG, but it's a different sort of ball game now. Semi-finals, more players available for them. It's been quite convincing as well. Like, I didn't expect us to thrash PSG. I expected us to beat them, but not thrash them the way we did. Real Madrid, that's what gave me this hope that we can actually do it. Before the Real Madrid game, wouldn't say we had a chance really to win the Champions League, but when you're beating them so convincingly, it gives you every reason to believe that your team can do it. That's
a massive statement, isn't it? Especially under Arteta, where people have said, or maybe Arsenal have had shortcomings in the league and in other cups, but to be able to do that to what people think the beast of Real Madrid, it's got to be the confidence around the club right now. It's got to be almost as high as it could be.
Because the league, especially because the league's gone so bad and we've fallen off so badly on it. This has been our main focus. It's been our only focus. We always go out the cups. It seems to be domestic cups early, even though we got the semi-finals against Newcastle. So it really has shone quite, big key focus for this Champions League. The league's it's literally Champions League or nothing. So massive game. Yeah.
Definitely. Leo, what have you got to say?
I'd be wrong if I didn't say that. I didn't expect it to make it this far, realistically. Like Marcus said, it's been a very disappointing season. You can blame injuries all you like, but at the end of the day, it's what you've got available in your squad. But yeah, just solely focus on the Champions League. We started off pretty well. Finished, I think it was third overall. That's one loss, one draw, other games won, and that was we beat a lot of good sides. No one had an easy run, to be fair. We took advantage of that. Well, we beat PSG, beat Monaco.
Yeah.
Also due to Atlanta away, lost it into, and then
crashed
you got the. Yeah, exactly. When Amarim was still there as well. But yeah, no, we look forward into the knockouts. Pretty convincing throughout the whole way through. Absolutely battered PSV. I can't remember, was it 7-0 at away leg?
Something like that. It might have been 7-1 or something.
Mental. But yeah, coming off the Real Madrid game, no one gave us a chance going into it as well. And then, you looked how we went after the home leg. At the Bernabeu, they looked clueless. Absolutely clueless.
Yeah, that talk was quite funny, wasn't it? Like, Wednesday, 9:00, remontada.
Well, it goes to show, like, I've always said this going into the game. I was like, I just think they've got far too emotional about it because the pressure's on them. We've got no pressure. No one's given us a chance, and now we're favourites, like statistically or something like that. So you could argue the pressure's on us, but even then, there's no pressure there because there's, what I mean? It's not really as much as expectation for us to win it. It's more to see how far we can go.
Yeah.
But, we've put our resources into it. But I'm sure we'll touch on what PSG will bring, what we'll bring shortly.
Yeah, I think the great thing about what Arsenal did in the leg against Real Madrid is first game at the Emirates, you go 1-0 up, and it's not like, oh, what the heck? Like, we did not expect this. We don't know what to do. We didn't think we were going to be in this position, and we're gonna, maybe go back into our shell a little bit, try and just take the 1-0? Because I'm sure if I said to you guys before the first leg, would you take a 1-0 win? You say yeah. But then you go on, you get the second, you get the third. And I think to keep 2 clean sheets, was it? I'm pretty sure kept 2 clean sheets against them across both legs.
No,
I think it just shows that.
But the first thing, we shouldn't have conceded as well. Yeah. He's got the goal.
Oh, yeah, from the mistake. But to have that maturity of, conceding 1 goal across 2 legs against that so-called superstar attack, I think shows that you probably do have, the minerals with your ability to win it. It just depends if you've got it up there. But
yeah,
let me just ask you guys.
Go on.
If I said before the season, your UCL, you're going to get to the semi-finals, you would both take it, right?
Yeah.
Of course. But now in this position that you're in right now, you've got 2 legs against PSG and then 1 game against, 1 game in the final. Would you say now that if you don't go on to win it, would you be disappointed? Obviously, there's always going to be an element of disappointment, but do you think it's yours to lose now, or do you still think that the other teams in this are favourites?
I think it's very circumstantial. It depends if you could, because you know what I mean. You can't, at the end of the day, we can't take anything away from PSG because they've gone through it. Like, we beat them in the group stage, entirely different outfit now. They've been like revolutionised. I just, you know what I mean. If we've left everything out there, we've had, we may have had chances. Say Donnarumma was an absolute blinder, like Courtois did against us away. Then it's like, you kind of like take on the chin. But
yeah,
like I said, it's just, see what happens, and then.
Yeah, your connection's a bit scuffed, but I think overall we can agree that Arsenal have had a good UCL campaign to be proud of. I think I'll just talk about PSG quickly. Obviously, I live over there right now. I consider myself the correspondent. Their UCL run this year has not been anything but smooth. They, out of the 4 teams that are left, they were the only team that weren't in the top 4. They did beat Liverpool, who were first, but they finished 16th, 15th, in fact, in the group stage. They had a record of 4 wins, 1 draw, and 3 losses, and they were 2-1-3 until the last 2 games where they managed to beat Salzburg and Man City. It wasn't looking like, no one thought PSG were going to be in this position they were now. Like Leo said, they've improved a lot of the team. They've got a lot of young players, and in the knockouts they've shown maturity and they've been good. They thrashed Brest, which is probably expected. And I think the Liverpool one is the standout win, to go away from home at Anfield, keep a clean sheet there and hold your nerve on the penalties. I think that is their statement win comparing to your, Real Madrid 3-0. And what I think is interesting for me about the PSG season in the UCL is the last game against Villa. I spoke to my teacher about this, who supports PSG, how PSG will deal with or not deal with the pressure with the young players and the atmosphere of different games. So if we just move on to like the general preview, Kyle, as I'm sure you're sort of aware of the feeling of curse around Tottenham Hotspur and with Kane, he's never going to win anything. Like the Spurs won't win a trophy. In Paris, it seems like there is a similar feeling of curse regarding the European thing. Obviously, Ligue 1's walk in the park. They win the domestic ones. They've won Ligue 1, I think, 11 times in the last 13, 14 years. But in Europe, they've lost in the finals. I think they've got to the semis a couple of times, and they just, despite having Messi, Neymar, and Mbappe, they just really lack that. And I think watching that second game away at Villa, I think Arsenal would be watching that with a lot of hope. That shows when PSG, when it comes to it and the pressure's on them, they're not, is necessarily the best in dealing with that. Like I said, I spoke to my teacher about it. I said, okay, cool. The Parc de France, it's loud. The virage or like behind the goal, they're loud. But at the Parc de France, the fans are so far away. And at Villa Park, the fans are on top of you. Second leg, away from home. The feeling that I was getting watching that, in like a bar in Paris with other PSG fans, it was extremely nervous. The first game, it was loud, there was chanting, and they get 3-1 at the end, and it was cool. I think Arsenal will want to really try and do damage at the Emirates, where PSG, they've received a reduced allocation. I don't know if you guys seen about that. Arsenal gave PSG like less than they had before, and they quoted. I've been reading the papers today. Apparently, there's a bit of beef going on. They quoted the London Marathon as a reason why they've given them less tickets. But yeah, so I don't think the PSG fans they're not going to be in there in that much numbers. But I think, in my opinion, PSG will be happy to have the Emirates as the first one and be able to try and bring something back home to the Parc de France. But I think we've shown that under stress in the big moments, like they did well at Liverpool, but at Aston Villa, where the fans are really on top of them, I don't think they're a team that will have the iron nerves and really truck through that difficulty in those situations. So do you guys think? So with the Arsenal PSG game, one thing that you guys wanted to talk about is the lineup, and Arsenal are missing number 5 and Jorginho due to suspension and injury. Who do you guys think will be joining Odegaard and Rice in the midfield trio? Because we know that's a key battle. The midfield is always a key battle, especially in the two teams and the way they set up. Kyle, you can go first if you want, and then we'll go to Marcus and Leo. Who would your choice be to join the two in the middle?
I'd probably say Marino makes the most sense, purely because he was signed as a midfielder, and then because of Arsenal's attacking injuries that have happened this season, he's been moved to a more advanced role in the front line. But I'd probably say it makes more sense to drop him back there. There's an argument for Lewis Skelly, but it's again, do you drop an 18-year-old into a position where he's not played too much in the last couple of months? I know he's probably played there at like academy level and etc. But PSG in the semi-final is a completely different scenario, really. So it's like, do you maybe move him into there where he's not had as much time playing there in like the last couple of months? So personally, I would go for Marino, but who knows, really.
Leo?
Oh, I don't like this because it's.
I think it's a pretty obvious solution.
Yeah, this is what I think will happen. It will be Marino, Rice, Odegaard, like without a doubt.
Yeah.
If Jorginho was fit, I reckon Jorginho would have started. But the only thing that I don't like is that with Marino up top and what he's done so well since transition as a makeshift 9 is his ability to win duels, win that physical battle, win those second balls. Like I use a key example of I think it was Saka's goal. That came off a goal kick. Moreno's won a header. Saka's through on the flank. And the problem is as well. You then what will then happen? Trossard I'm assuming will probably play striker.
Yeah. You
lose that directness, which obviously was so effective for us against Real Madrid across both legs. And I hate to say it, but thus losing 5 is probably not good purely because of our team combination. As well, I'll just shout out to Declan Rice, but he's not revolutionised. Everyone knows he's a brilliant player, but ever since say Havertz or Jesus have been injured, he's really stepped up in terms of his ability of getting forward that we've seen develop over his past few years. We all know he was a great ball carrier, but what I think really come on in this game is the ability to make those runs in behind, or just drag it.
The third man,
yeah, literally. And I think that's a massive loss in that left 8 space. Although Moreno can still do it, and I think what I wouldn't be surprised if they do say Moreno up for those long balls, or he's kind of what do you call it, Havertz? But what's the German term for the second striker?
I'm not sure. I know what you mean.
Yeah, like that. He's almost
just kind of plays off the striker. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm assuming he'll do that, but I don't know.
So you're saying that ideally it would. So you'd say, okay, let's say we're in a situation where Arteta thinks Marino's done this job up front, and actually we've been getting the success we didn't think we'd have. We want this directness. Marino is going up front. Yeah. So now we're in a situation.
And especially, well, the thing is as well, you've got to think about PSG's midfield.
Yeah.
Vitinha,
Neves and Ruiz.
Neves, yeah. Tiny. We had the ability to completely dominate that, middle third.
I don't know. I think that's a misconception. If you look at the Jules one, I think it's no. I know what you're saying because it's easy. Yeah, they might outrun them, but in terms of Jules and stuff like that, if you look at the numbers I've seen, it's surprising because you think with PSG, with the players like Neves and Vitinha, you're right. They're small guys, and they're technical players. But I don't think it's easy as saying we're going to run them over. Yeah, of course, the Premier League is a very different league to Ligue 1. But I think if you just employ your physical midfielders in that midfield, I don't think it's going to be as smooth as just saying we're going to run over these guys, we're going to out-physical them.
Yeah, but then you've also got to look at the technical ability of our midfield as well. And that's where maybe where I'm second guessing myself with playing Rice at 6, because we all know, like, at West Ham for England, arguably like probably one of the best 6 in Europe, if not the world. Having that technical security and that presence at the back, I think might actually be the game breaker in terms of like what I've just said. Maybe you know what I mean. It's a completely different ballgame from PSG to Real Madrid.
Yeah. So, but like I was saying, if you wanted to play Marino up front for that directness, for the presence, then you've got to compose a midfield 3 without Jorginho, without 5, and without Marino. Let's say Arteta really wanted to have his heart set on Marino up front. Then who would you play in? Would you put in Lewis Skelly, or would you put in someone who's a bit more like makeshift, or
I wouldn't be surprised if Trossard drops into the midfield.
Is it?
Like I think what it will line up as in like Moreno would start left, Trossard would go down the middle. But I wouldn't be surprised if that changes throughout the game.
Yeah,
just kind of. I don't really have like. Obviously, I don't know what Arteta's thinking, what he's done, what he's analysed.
Yeah,
but I wouldn't be surprised if it's like it's a shift, because Trossard was something completely different. But I don't know. It's really tricky. So like I'm going to say like my final prediction obviously is going to be Moreno, Rice, and Odegaard.
Yeah,
and I think, albeit some of my, because of what I've seen from Moreno as a 9. Obviously, it's not perfect, you know what I mean? As a makeshift 9, anyway. I think that you kind of just have to stick with Rice in the 6, purely because, again, of that midfield battle and his just general ball winning ability, passes, whatever. But, like, yeah.
Marcus, what do you want to see when you arrive to the ground, when you see the lineups? What do you want the midfield trio to be?
I want it to be what it will be, because Mikel Arteta isn't a very risk-averse manager, in my opinion. Yeah. He will play Marino in the 8. We have got options, to be fair, but how good those options are in the 8, I don't really back it. I'm going to go for a list of options now, but he's not going to choose them. If Calafiori's fit for the game, he has played in defensive midfield for Italy. He won't do that, but he could do that and push Rice to the 8. Zinchenko's obviously plays in midfield for Ukraine, has done that before for club, but I wouldn't want to see him starting on Tuesday. Obviously, Lewis Skelly could come into the 8, but then that means you're starting Ben White at right back, and I'm not too sure if I want to be sticking him in against Kvaratskhelia. It will be Marino in the 8, and they'll kind of like interchange, like which was said earlier, as a second striker with Trossard, because when you look at some of the link-up play Marino provides, we will miss that not being up front. You can say it was only Ipswich, but some of the stuff he was doing against Ipswich was amazing. Lovely little flick-on, stuff like that. And yeah, Mikel Arteta doesn't like really switching it up, and he will start Marino in the 8. Jorginho, like Leo said, I think if Jorginho was fit, he would play in the 6. Rice would be in the 8. Lewis Skelly, he could play in the midfield, but then again, it's another risk because he hasn't really done that for first team football. He's done that in the academy. And I wouldn't want to mess up the balance of the back line of Lewis Skelly on the left, Timber on the right. I really wouldn't be messing with that now, especially when you're coming up against There could be a list of any wingers you're going to be coming up against, but you've got a lot of options against PSG. And PSG are a side who like to switch the play a lot. I think they've got some of the stats for like the highest in Europe or the highest in Champions League. And I wouldn't want a rusty fullback who hasn't played much football at fullback recently to be stuck on the left or right back position, because Hakimi, Dembele on that right side, you give them any inch of space if you're inverting too much, they can absolutely have us down that right side.
Definitely. And I've got something with that as well, that this season in the Champions League, PSG have the most successful attacking take-ons per 90 with 28.5 per 90. And I think second place was around 25 and then third was around 23. So I'm sure you guys, when you've seen PSG, when they attack quick and they go out wide. We'll talk. I'm sure we'll come on to some of the battles that might occur, but they don't exactly play with a strike with Dembele. He's a winger who's up front. He's not a typical like 9 like you see in the Premier League. But the way PSG attack so quickly, 1 or 2, maybe 3 passes to get the ball out wide and then get the ball into the box. Those attacking take-ons, I think, it's going to be key. So one battle that I'm looking forward to is Miles Lewis-Skelly against, you can say multiple players because PSG are so fluid. So at times it will be Kvaratskhelia. I think they're going to line up with Barcola and even Dembele will drift that wide sometimes. So I think it will be a really big test. And obviously with Hakimi bombing on as well. I think it will be a really big test for Lewis-Skelly. He's still young. He's looked good. He looked good against the Real Madrid game, and he's a player who's physically strong. He doesn't look like a kid on the pitch. We know about his, he mistimed some tackles sometimes, but I think those battles against Barcola, against those direct players, against PSG who are going to try and attack fast on the counter, I think that's where the game in terms of PSG attacking is going to be decided. Can your fullbacks deal with that constant directness, and or are Arsenal going to get caught on the counter? When someone like Lewis-Skelly might come inside or get caught out of position. I think Timber will be okay, but I just think the main battle on the left side, will Barcola, have the ability to take it on Lewis-Skelly, and I think the other battle that I'm really interested in is the same battle on the other side, Saka against Nuno Mendes. Have you guys, got any opinions on those battles that we could be seeing on Tuesday night?
I think that this is like the test of Lewis-Skelly's career. Like, obviously he's only 18.
Yeah.
But like, this is where shit hits the fan in a way. Like, it's, I think it's like he's, you look at his performances the last few months. He's been, a bar like 2 or 3, stupid, like you can say like inexperienced challenges.
Yeah.
How do you deal with wingers that are so direct? Like, you know what I mean? Like you just don't want to think about any fullback that plays against any of them.
Yeah. But
it'll be interesting to see how much you can mix, because if you looking back at the second leg, you kind of saw, obviously before the 1-0, but even throughout the whole game, we retained that back 4 even in possession. You didn't see Timber like bomb up as much. You didn't see Lewis-Skelly invert. You literally saw the like Odegaard, Moreno, Saka, Martinelli up top. That was it.
It was disciplined, yeah.
Yeah, it's very disciplined. So I'm interested to see what approach he takes, whether Arteta takes, whether it's just all out, we'll play our stuff, we'll see what we can do.
Yeah.
Or it's reserved nature, because. But then again, you got to take those risks at this, at this stage of
at home as well.
And we've got to put ourselves in an advantage. But I feel like, it's just something's bound to happen either way. They will make a break. They will, and you can't just like act as if that's not going to be the case. You can minimize it. But it's just it will happen. Something will happen. Someone will make a mistake.
I completely agree.
And that's what I mean. It's just how. I'm really looking forward to see how, particularly Lewis-Skelly deals with that, because that defending with that pace, that prowess, like that's a lot. I
personally think that you guys are going to be absolutely bricking it watching the game because we know at home most teams have more of the ball and they try and play their stuff with the fans behind the first leg as well. But the thing is, with PSG, they're always within 2 or 3 passes of scoring. So no matter how in control you feel, like you said, Leo, no matter how in control you feel against PSG, all it takes is one, either mistake or one duel that PSG win. They don't have a build up. Like they just get the ball into transition straight away. They play it out wide. They get the runners running at you direct. And I think that is, like you said, going to be scary because, like I said, you're going to be in control. You're going to be passing it around. You're going to be playing your patterns and passages of play. But as soon as PSG want to hit you on that counter with the front three they've got, which I think, like I said, is going to be Dembele, Kvaratskhelia, and Barcola, that's where I think they're going to have most of their joy away from home. So, like you said, if Lewis Skelly does invert this space out there that Barcola is gonna try and occupy, or Dembele will probably try and occupy. Dembele can also drop in as well to peel off the centre halves and then turn and then play those balls in behind. So I think PSG, because of their directness and because of their intensity and like I said, they're always so close to being able to score. I think it's difficult for Arteta to think we're going to play our stuffs and say F you, we're going to do our thing, because that threat's always there. So
that's it as well. I'm interested to see if we commit to our press as well, because we saw we saw against Bayern last year. We had a good press. Neuer's flicked it over I don't know. I think it was a Trossard hit like Havertz or something like that. And next thing you know, they scored at the other end.
I personally, from watching both the teams a little bit, I personally think that you guys should. I don't think Donnarumma is amazing with his feet.
No, but as soon as you just have it in the back four, it's it's completely different.
Yeah,
completely different ball game as well. But
what PSG normally do is they start with the back four, and then they in the build up they'll have a back three. Normally, it will be Marquinhos will go to the right, Pacho will be in the middle, and then Vitinha will drop in to the sort of left centre back. You know how kind of Kroos did in the World Cup and stuff like that. However, I think, and sometimes they do it with Vitinha, but sometimes they do it with Nuno Mendes as the left centre back. I think that it's probably more likely that Nuno Mendes is going to be that third guy because Saka is a threat, and Nuno Mendes has that ability. That 1v1 ability, kind of I don't know if it's a bad comparison, but in terms of the Wan-Bissaka 1v1 sort of prowess that you know him for, I think Luis Enrique is more likely to leave Mendes back a little bit more to deal with that Saka threat, which we know can be so, prominent, like he did with Salah, and then Vitinha will be in the midfield. But my point is that you've got Marquinhos, Pacho, and Nuno Mendes with Donnarumma behind. I think at the Emirates with the fans behind you, there's not going to be many there's going to be 2,500 PSG fans and 47,000 Arsenal fans. PSG are going to be nervous. They're a fairly young team. I think Arteta will want to commit to that press, try and force mistakes, and we know the best place to win the ball back is closer to their goal. You're always closer to scoring. So I hope you commit to the press. I think it will make it a really exciting game because if they do beat the press and then they're gone, it's a dilemma. I think you guys will press in parts, sit back for parts. You can't press for full 90. But I think it could, end up being pretty intriguing if, PSG look a bit shaky and nervous, like I think they will.
About that seating allocation thing, I read about it. I think it's a bit of retaliation from us because PSG are doing the exact same thing to us where we're meant to have 2,400 and we're going to have 2,000. And they're meant to I think they're meant to have 3,000 and we're giving them 2,500 or something like that. So it's kind of like mind games between the clubs, I think.
Yeah. I mean, it is what it is. And I think one thing that, it's not really a typical PSG thing that we're going to have thought for the last sort of, 10 years of us being able to watch football. I think you guys are going to notice it because, you notice things against your own team more. PSG work a lot harder out of possession than I think you guys will think. People like Kvaratskhelia, incredibly good at counter pressing, as you call it, or as soon as they lose the ball, pressing it. Dembele works hard and Barcola works hard. We're so used to seeing the front three being lazy and having, people like Danilo Pereira and other midfielders who just break up the play and work hard. The whole PSG team works extremely hard, so it's not going to be easy for Arsenal to just recycle the play or play out from the back and have basically be able to play through the lines easily. So I think you guys are going to be very surprised of how hard PSG work, and it's a completely different team to what we have in our heads. The superstar team. I really like what they've done this year, and I think Enrique's found the right balance between controlling possession, pressing, attacking on the counter. It's the most excited I've been for a game since probably Torquay against Hartlepool in 2021. That's saying something. So, yeah, if you guys have got any more points about the game, we can go through them, and then I think we'll go to a quick few predictions, and then we'll make a combined 11.
Mm-hmm. One thing I do want to touch on as well, I think, is the importance that Martinelli and Saka will have in the game, from our perspective, purely because you can talk what you like about attacking output, but their work rate in defence is probably like some of the best in the league, maybe in Europe. And how because you got Hakimi, you got Nuno Mendes. What is the game plan with that? Will they mark them down flanks, or they just purely, because that's going to be really, really key in order to protect our fullbacks also. You can say what you like about Timber, he's pretty robust, he's pretty solid. But when you got Kvaratskhelia running at you, it's a bit of like I saying with Skelly, it's a bit like, oh shit. But they're going to be really important. And then I'm just interested to see how our counter-attacking game works out as well, because it's something that I personally have always criticised us for, that we don't have that clinicalness on the counter-attack. We're not sharp. We're not ping a ball, bang, 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 bang. Next thing we know, we're in net third. It could be very, just very frustrating at times. But be like we were saying, we can talk. The wingers will win the game anyway. That's where all the superstars are in for both teams. So really forced to see how that plays out.
And I think one more surprising thing that you guys might find is PSG under Enrique, especially recently, they've been so fluid. You're going to watch the game and think, why are you there? I've seen the screenshot before of the PSG. It was against Liverpool, I think, and they were attacking. They were in the final third. Mendes and Hakimi were both in the middle of the park. The left winger was on the right, the striker was on the right, and the right winger was on the left. So I think what they do is they confuse teams. Teams like to be structured, and like you said, it's going to be okay, Mars Lewis Skelly, you're going to have to watch, Barcola. But actually, in the next 5 minutes, Dembele is going to come over there. Then Kvaratskhelia is going to come over there. And when they attack quickly, they combine with each other in small areas so well. And because it's random players who you wouldn't expect to be there, I think it gets extremely hard for the defending team to think, what space am I supposed to be covering? Who am I supposed to be pressing? When you've got, the right winger Barcola combining with Mendes in the middle of the park, it's not easy for a team to be organised, especially if they've attacked fairly quickly. So I think PSG's intensity and the way they combine so fluidly and how adaptable they are, I think, it's definitely going to be an interesting game. And I think if you guys are ready, we can move on to try and make a little combined 11 for what we'd have for the game on Tuesday, if that's okay with you guys.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, cool. So we'll just we'll get this up and we'll start with the goalkeeper. Kyle, you can start.
Donnarumma stinks, so I'll probably get Raya in, to be fair.
You boys both going with Raya as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do agree.
No bias.
No, it's not bias.
He had a good game the other day against Villa. He had a good game, in the second leg. I mean, he did quite a few times at Donnarumma.
Yeah.
Every other time I've seen him, he's just he's in that group of players where they're constantly raved about, but then every time that I've actually seen them play, I thought that they were either mid or just really crap. It's like I've not seen for example, a Rafa Leao game where I've actually been like, yo, this guy is so good, or like I see why he's in the same bracket as so and so. Like,
their reputation exceeds their ability, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
I do have that with Donnarumma because, like you said, I think he's old-fashioned in a way. Like he's a big guy. I'm sure he's probably good in like FIFA and stuff. You know, he's this shot stopper. Like I said, I'm still a bit unconvinced with him with the ball at his feet, and you know that's such a big part of the modern game and stuff. So, and also like in the way that Emi Martinez was, I do think he's got the odd mistake in him. So yeah, I think it's easy to go with Raya. And now I think we'll go to right back next, and I guess we're choosing between Hakimi and Timber, which is a crazy battle. You know, just for the second one, I think. Who wants to start this?
Timber. I'm sorry, but like he is absolutely mustard.
Mm.
But like, you know what I mean? You can't take it away from Hakimi. But like, if I was looking at the two who I'd want in my team,
yeah.
Obviously, this is biased anyway, realistically. But like, I just think he just got, you know, something like he just, you know, he always drops like 7, 8 out of 10, no matter what.
Yeah.
I think just the pure consistency that he provides, I think I'd have him over it. Maybe Hakimi's more like flashy, you know what I mean? Like he can make things happen, like, you know what I mean? Credit to him.
Yeah.
But I'm just going on consistency, so I'd say Timber personally.
Marcus, you agree?
I agree, but if you lot don't agree, put it this way, I won't be surprised or shouting.
I'm personally okay to go with. I know it might surprise a few people, but I'm okay to go with Timber. I think as a manager, like I do like what he'd give me in terms of, you know, consistency, being solid. Hakimi, I think they're different types of fullbacks.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
Hakimi's gonna you know, go forward, and Hakimi, you know, recently he's been getting in the box, getting a few goals. But I just think because of the consistency and just the solidness, because with Timber, he does well. I don't hear much about him, but that's probably a good thing because it's just like he does his thing every week. You know, part of a good Arsenal defense, and yeah, unless Kyle has any strong objections, I'm okay to put him in there, to be honest.
I understand putting him in there, but I'm a bit of a sucker for like traditional fullbacks of where they stay wide and just bomb down the sides. Like, I'm getting so pissed off at seeing inverted fullbacks every week. Like,
yeah, but Timber doesn't
like,
really. Timber doesn't.
No, I know.
Albeit he doesn't overlap as much. He's still, I'd say, probably your more traditional. You know,
yeah, I think he's a bit more old-fashioned.
He can play in essential areas, but I wouldn't write him up. But like you said, Hakimi's your more like bombing fullback, like what you want from like a attacking fullback.
But yeah, I genuinely think that this this battle between the two for this, I think it's so like 50-50 where it's, you know, if it goes the other way, you can't complain. So I think we'll go with the two centre half. Disclaimer. We're talking about the available centre half, so you know Gabriel will not be in this. I'm guessing you guys want Saliba in there, and you know I'm cool with that. Then we'll just have to decide on a secondary centre back. So we're not going to limit it to side. So we've got between, I guess, Kirill, Pacho, and Marquinhos, because I think Pacho or Beraldo, if you for some reason really want him.
Kivio's played so good for us, like in the games against Real Madrid, but I would put Marquinhos in there. But I mean, Kivio's really impressed me in stepping up whilst Gabriel's been out. So I think he's got another massive game in him on Tuesday, but I think I would go Marquinhos.
Because it was almost like a bit of a meme when it was, you know, when Gabriel gets out and you had Real Madrid in whenever, it was almost like see online, people clowning before the game, you know, basically saying it's over. And to be fair, like I wasn't 100% locked in on the game, but you know, to keep a clean sheet and then lose or concede to a mistake which you had nothing to do with against the front three that Real Madrid have. I think it's solid. I think it's fair enough.
I think it's. I'd like to have this. I'd like to do this after the game. Obviously, it's like easy to say that.
After the game.
You know what I mean? Like it's just like, but I think I have to agree with Marcus. Like you can discredit reputation if you want, but at the end of the day, like he's an established international, European player, established like league winner. So I just, what I mean, I think you can't take it away from him. So I'll probably say Marquinhos.
Yeah, I think PSG they're still unbeaten in Ligue 1 this year. They're playing Nice tonight in just over an hour. So when the lineup comes out, we'll probably have a quick look at it and see, because I guess it will maybe give us a little bit of an insight to what's going to happen on Tuesday. But Kyle, you cool to put Marquinhos in there?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like they've said, Kyrill's stepped up in like the last couple of games, but again, Marquinhos has been there for 9 years. So if we're going to talk about Kyrill being good over the last couple of games, we need to talk about Marquinhos being like a borderline world class, or at the very least, very, very good defender for the last decade or so.
Left back is Nuno Mendes. And I'm not going to hear anything different.
Yeah.
I'm sure you guys are going to have some stuff to say. I think, I guess they're slightly different, but I don't think you can show me something that Lewis Skelly can do that Nuno Mendes can't do, but better. And this you shouldn't take offense to this. Lewis Skelly is like an 18-year-old lad, and he's completely burst onto the scene and done his thing with a few reds and that, but. Choosing Mendes in this is not discrediting Lewis Skelly. I just think, if you're picking this for a one-off, game, I want Nuno Mendes. Now fire away.
No,
I'll give you Nuno Mendes. I'll give you Nuno Mendes.
Thank you.
I so badly want to. All of me wants to be like.
I'm not gonna lie. I don't really know many other left backs who I would gladly just kind of say. Over Miles Skelly currently, I'd be like, put him in over him. But yeah. I can't discredit.
I think,
Mendes.
Yeah, he's a physical beast. He gets into the box. Like I'm pretty sure, I can't remember, which is my bad. I'm pretty sure he scored in both legs against Villa. Yeah, where he definitely scored at least one. He pops up in the box defensively. He locked up Salah. It's not it's not like an amazing achievement, but it's still something to stop how productive Salah was at the time to lock him down. And I think we're going to see, like I said, an incredible battle between him and Saka. I think he's going to have more defensive responsibility on Tuesday, and it's not going to be easy for Saka to do his thing. As much as I like him, I think it's going to be an unstoppable force meets an immovable object. Kyle, you agree?
Yeah, I agree. I'm not having Lewis Skelly anywhere near that.
All right, we'll swiftly move on into the midfield. I think we'll start off on the left hand side. Not that it really matters that much. I'll have Declan Rice in one of the positions. I'm sure you guys probably agree with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
After his Real Madrid heroics, it was that was a bit crazy to watch.
Please.
If I see, that would be something like. That would be crazy.
That would explode.
I also personally want to put Vitinha in there.
I'd agree with that.
He hasn't been in great form recently from what I've seen. Against Aston Villa away at Villa Park, I do think the atmosphere maybe got to him. Obviously, players have bad games, but the atmosphere might have got to him a little bit. He wasn't that, secure in possession, but I think what he gives you technically, he can drop in, like I said, to like the cruise role. He's really comfortable on the ball. He can beat the press. He can progress the ball, and I think he's just like a maestro that you want in there, especially with how PSG have been this season. He's been absolutely crucial in how they've done, and that leaves us down to one more where I'm guessing we're choosing between. We've got Odegaard, we've got Fabian Ruiz, we've got João Neves, and maybe Marino as well.
Which one out of as much as I'd love to put Odegaard in, just the way he's been this season, I can't. I
I'm
can't.
not putting
I
anyone
can't
anywhere
justify
near this
putting him
lineup.
in there. So I was going to say,
Oh.
which one out of Neves and Ruiz has probably been the better player? I would.
I
say
think
Neves has played. Has Neves
João
played more?
Neves, surely.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
Ruiz is more steady. I guess that's the way to put it. You know, he's like probably not as flashy, and he's a bit more physical. Of course, he's technical as well. But you know, Neves he's like they spent quite a lot of money on him from Portugal, but I think he's been great from what I've seen. You know, he gets around on the ball. He's great. And I think he's just an exciting player to watch. You know, I'm pretty short myself. You know, I used to play centre mid, and you know, if I don't put on the weight that I have, he's one of the players you'd kind of aspire to play like him and Vitinha. When I speak to my lads at you know, football and they play centre mids, the technical ones, I tell them, you know, watch Vitinha and you know, maybe João Neves as well, because those are the unbelievable players on the ball. So I'm more than happy to have João Neves in there as well.
I'd want to say Marino.
You want to say Marino?
Because I don't think. Well, Marino's not going to get anywhere near the front three anyway. But like, I just think as a free, Rice, Vitinha, Marino.
I know what you mean. It depends if we want to say.
You know what I mean?
It depends. Are we actually crafting a team where they're going to like employ tactics?
Okay. No.
I'm not trying to put you.
I'd argue just put best players, but like I just.
My only problem with putting him in this midfield is most of what we are praising him off has been from him being up front. So like.
Yeah, but that's because we managed to bring out the best of his game, and like even when he did move against Ipswich, when he did move into like midfield, he was, you know what I mean. I think he's just obviously he hasn't been bad like at all season. He just, you know, taking his time, not necessarily to adapt, but just to, you know, get to his best again.
Yeah, and of course, transferring clubs not as easy as just, you know, going and playing.
Yeah, but you go from playing in the Basque region, right? You play with like most likely been playing with players that he's been playing up for like, you know, years. You have that, you know, chemistry is like.
He had that bad injury as well, didn't he? Before he
but like, you know what I mean, like genuinely adjusting from that to the Premier League is a completely different ball game, and I think it's just credit to him, and you know what I mean. It's a shame that it's had to take him moving to 9 for everyone to be like, wow, he's like, you know, he's mustard, but like, you know, I'm pretty open for this final spot. Like, I'd be happy with like Neves or Marino.
We'll put Neves in. Before we move on, Arsenal boys and Kyle as well, if you've got an opinion, what has been wrong, I guess we could say, with Martin Odegaard this season? Why has it not been, you know, why are you guys not giving him the praise that was there before? What's changed about his game? Is it just, do you think it's a confidence thing? Do you think it's a systematic or a system thing? What do you think's gone wrong for him this season?
I'd say it's a system, because you look at his output 2 years ago, 15 goals.
Oh yeah, non-penalty goals, like, right at the top of the
I think that was one of the highest scoring midfield seasons ever.
It was.
Like, and I think he has unfortunately been the one to suffer from this system that we played this season, because obviously we've been looking, like, prior to Havertz's injury, we've been looking to get the best out of him, albeit it hasn't probably worked as well as we wanted it to. And he picked up form a bit before he got injured again. But like, especially now where we're mainly attacking with our wingers.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, we still, you know what I mean? We still see the quality that Odegaard has, but I think the only problem is everyone just, he could be a bit like, oh shit, like, you know what I mean?
A passenger, yeah.
That's what I mean. Like, he won't. We don't see the best of him, basically.
Yeah, because I don't watch them in week in, week out, you guys, but I'm sure his underlying numbers are still good. But I think with the output, for someone's output to fall off, I don't want to say like not, you know what I mean, for his output to decrease that much, something has changed. Either he was extremely lucky that 1 year, or he's low in confidence now, and the system's changed. So yeah,
he was almost box crashing when he was having that output, and his, you know what I mean, like his striking is, you know, on his left foot is like pretty decent.
Yeah, the way left footers are.
But like, obviously, he's got no right foot. That's like no word of doubt. But he just, I think it's slightly a confidence thing as well. Because when you do go through these stages, you don't realize how much of an impact that actually has on a player. You know what I mean? Like, form's a mental thing.
If you're talking about confidence, he's never really had injuries in his career. And I remember before the start of the season saying, if there's one player who we don't want to get injured because of the lack of depth in that position, it would be Martin Odegaard. I mean, also he had that kind of lengthy, I want to say 2 months not in the squad sort of thing.
Yeah.
And some people still say that. I don't know how much truth to it is, that he could have surgery on his ankle in the summer because he still isn't rotating it apparently as much as it should be. This is like doctors on Twitter and that saying that. And I think that could play a part to it, because even when he came back, we improved straight away. You could see when he came back into the squad, we did improve as a team, but he's never really had injuries. He hasn't had that consistent person up front. So I think he might have surgery in the summer, to be fair.
And you see it across like pretty much every sport in the world where, you know, an injury happens, it doesn't quite correct itself fully. Maybe they're awaiting surgery or playing through it. You know, he could be on like some type of like injections for all we know. And there's so much that we don't see from outsiders that, you know, I'm sure that there's a reason, and he's not just, you know, bad at football. Yeah, it's a shame, but it's an interesting one for Arsenal, because he's gone from being a top 2 like attacking player / midfielder to someone where it's you guys would probably not be, you know, completely averse to him maybe losing his place to either a new signing or another player. And if I said that to you guys like a year ago or a year and a half ago, it'd be like, whoa, like what's happened there? But we'll move on to the front three. Right wing will start. Go on.
1 second. I'm gonna cut because I've got a pizza. So,
all right, enjoy your pizza, bud. Thank you.
All right, enjoy, guys.
What?
No, I think it's Domino's, so I ain't missing out on that. So,
all right, in a bit, bro.
Don't fuck up this final 3, Marcus. That's what I'm gonna say.
Right. Well, we'll start with what I think is probably one of the easier ones. Right wing. We've got basically choice between the whole PSG front three, and Bukayo Saka. You know, I'm taking Saka. Kyle, I'm not sure if you want Saka, or you can have Barcola, you can have Doué, you can have Kvaratskhelia, you can even have Dembele if you wanted. I'm taking Saka.
I think Dembele maybe, purely because I think he might offer more, like as in being a bit more fluid, of being able to like chop and change from either wing as well. Like I think he's got more variety to his game. But then I suppose that Saka works so well in the Arsenal system.
Yeah.
I think that Dembele is a more talented player. Like I don't know, but it's like we're choosing the squads off of like you said, are we choosing them where like they're going to have tactics and all of this? I just think Dembele is more talented.
Not to spoil it, I personally will go. I'd put Saka on the right and Dembele in the middle. You know, Dembele's been playing through the middle for PSG. He literally got phased out of the squad for like attitude issues or behavior, like something like that. This season, I think it was in like October, November, Enrique, he scored, I think 20. He hasn't scored for 3 weeks now, which is, you know, hopefully he scores today against Nice. But I'm pretty sure he scored almost 20 goals this like calendar year from a guy who's a winger converted to up front, and he had pretty notoriously bad finishing. I think I'd go Saka on the right, and I'm sure Marcus would agree. He might not agree on Dembele in the middle, but I think, you know, it's perfectly
I agree with that.
Okay to operate him through the middle. Yeah. So if we have Saka on the right, what other options would we have? So we have Dembele. Gonzalo Ramos is one of the worst players I've seen, so don't even mention him. And I guess we've got, you know, Trossard, Marino, because he's not in the midfield. But I just think the excitement that Dembele gives you, the fluidity, like we said, left, right, middle. He even drops in like I guess you call it like a false line position or a deep line position. He peels off to help with, you know, progressing the ball. He's just had like a breakout year, and he's one of my players to watch on Tuesday and the Wednesday after.
You know what though? I reckon if you ask this question maybe 2 or 3 years from now about the right hand spot, I think that it would be a lot closer between Doué and Saka. I think maybe 2 or 3 years from now, Like he's although he's not starting every game. Like I know that he came on against Liverpool quite late on. I think was it like the 70th minute. It's like, but he came on and just looked absolutely electric. Like and plays with no fear.
This is like a stupid reference, but I'm sure you guys have played career mode. Have you ever, on the squad hub where it says have that something special? That's how I see like Doué. Obviously, he's a great player. He can, he's versatile. He can play in the midfield. He can play out wide. But I think he just has that something special, that willingness to, not be a robot and maybe pass it back or do a system thing. To take the goal he scored against Villa, where he cuts inside and finesses it far corner. Morgan Rogers is still making contact with him at that point. It's not like he's on his own. He's probably slightly off balance, and he has the, I guess, audacity, confidence, and the freedom from Luis Enrique, which I've mentioned, and we've got to give him massive credit for. I think Doué's, like we guys will agree, probably one of the most exciting, young upcoming players, and I'd love to see him make the jump to the Prem. But at the same time, I do like PSG's project with the French talent that's coming through. But it'll be interesting to see if Doué can have that. Can he reach those levels of Saka? Will he be starting for France in a few years and playing on the international level and doing what he's doing this year in the UCL? But we'll go back to the striker role. Are you guys happy with Dembele, or Marcus, do you want to put a little pitch for Marino? Or
it would be Marino if I was to pitch it.
Okay.
Has Dembele always been? I know he has always been able to play striker, but has he normally been a winger? Hasn't he?
This season he's played up front.
Up front, okay, yeah. The thing is, Marino's done very good as a makeshift focal point up front for Arsenal. We haven't really had anybody else available to put them, and you could say Trossard. But Trossard I wouldn't put in this combined 11. Off the bench, yeah, probably, because he's very clutch off the bench.
He
kind of gives defenders that element of doubt when he comes off the bench. He scored some very important goals for us. I would put Marino. I would.
I'm telling you, you're gonna watch Dembele, and you're in there. You're live in person. You're gonna watch Dembele. Of course, his finishing.
I'll give Dembele. I'll give him, and that's not me being like, oh yeah, like
whatever. Yeah,
that's not me being like. I'm gonna back Marino, obviously, but I do think I'd obviously prefer to have Dembele in this starting 11 than Marino. And him being, I hope it was rested against Crystal Palace, because he wasn't in the squad at all. I hope it was rest and not
imagine so.
Injury. He will be so important for us. I'm really looking forward to. I know it was only Ipswich, but he played amazing. He's played amazing in other games this season. But I can't complain with Dembele up front.
And I just think
Leo will probably.
Go on, sorry.
Yeah.
No, I just think people who haven't watched PSG that much this season, and they see Dembele as like a young, like fresh winger who is inconsistent. He's funny in interviews and whatnot. I think people are going to be surprised with how versatile he is. Like I said, he can make the runs into the channels. He can go out right. He can go out left. He can drop in to receive the ball off the midfielders. His game has come on so much under Luis Enrique, and he's one of my favorite players in the world right now. So of course I'm going to have the bias.
I think myself included would be one of those people who would be surprised to see how he does and be interested, because I really don't know how well, and I know about him, but I don't know.
Yeah,
I know his pace and skills and stuff, but it'll be interesting to see how he frightens that back line.
I think it'll be interesting because he's not a player who's I don't think he's massively physical. As in, like, he's not gonna try and like back into like Saliba or something. He's gonna try and not like in like a scared way. He's gonna probably avoid him. He's gonna drift that wide, try and cause confusion. Make a decision. Do I follow him deep or not? But I think he's an interesting one. And we've got the last position, left wing. We've got so much to choose from. I guess we've got from Arsenal, we've got Martinelli. I guess you could put Trossard there. And then from PSG, you have Kvaratskhelia, you have Barcola. I can't necessarily say Doué, but it's an absolutely stacked position. Kyle, do you want to kick us off?
I would say Kvaratskhelia. He's one of them. He's probably. I don't mean to make it about Tottenham and be like the whole, get in there and make it about you kind of thing. But like, he is probably one of those players who we were linked with and failed to sign, who I think should be the one that we're most mad about. like him and Dewey probably. I just think he's such a great player to watch as well. I mean, like he's just like you say about how football these days is full of robotic wingers and all of this, but then it's Kvaratskhelia and Dewey as well, Dembele. I think as well, Martinelli, his output probably isn't as high as what you'd want it to be to maybe to maybe make up for the kind of gap in skill, like natural skill. So I would say Kvaratskhelia. I don't think that's really an unpopular opinion.
I think it's close between him and Barcola, because for me, obviously Kvaratskhelia, to pick him up in January, it's great for PSG. What is interesting, I was reading the paper here, and it's like the daily paper from L'Equipe. What they've said today, that means Kvaratskhelia, are you there? And the French press is criticizing his output. They have said how much of a hard worker he is, and we forget how easy it is or hard it is to adapt to a new environment. He's been there for a couple of months, but it's interesting that L'Equipe is criticizing his output. They say he does other good stuff. He works extremely hard for the team, and he's very popular in the PSG camp. But I think Barcola, he's one of those players, and if you look at the receipts in the chat, you'll see that I said, he can't finish. He's got no end product. And this year, he's got over 20 goal contributions. He's got like 13 goals. I think he's and in Ligue 1 as well, there's a bit of deflation, if you know what I mean. Goals are worth more there. There's less goals. So I think he's another exciting player. I'm not against putting Kvaratskhelia in, but I think Barcola is also a player who's come on so much. If he scores this week or against Arsenal, I guarantee you he'll be just inside the box on the left-hand side, and he'll like finesse it, not like power it. He'll just finesse it far side. He scores those goals so much, and I think for him to add end product, to go from a winger who can do skills to a winger who can produce results, I think there's a compelling argument for both players, and I think he's also another one at PSG have got who's going to be good for the future. But Marcus, you can either propose another player or have the deciding vote there.
I mean, I want to put Martinelli up, but I can't back it too this. It's bad. I can't back it too much. I mean, he'll be important on Tuesday, obviously, because he absolutely runs his socks off, and as well, I'm guessing PSG play a high line, probably, and I know they've got pacey fullbacks in Hakimi and Nuno Mendes, but he will be that person where, like the last goal against Real Madrid, if there's a ball played in behind, he's the person who I'd want trying to run past a player, because he's just got that electric pace. My only problem is his output when he's on the ball. He doesn't stick his head up enough, and that's not just like a Twitter thing where people say, he's just keeping his head down all the time. You're watching games and you get frustrated because you look at people across the box who you can play it to, and he's not doing it. He's just ends up doing a bad shot or whatever.
He's a pretty kick and run winger, isn't he?
He's like
spacing
just
behind, like you said.
Kick and run, yeah. And if I remember right, Barcola played against us in the group stage, and he was probably the player who I was most scared of when I was watching the game. I was looking at him, and he was taking us on. I think he got. I think he might have got subbed on. He might have started subbed on. He definitely played. When he was getting on the ball, he was the person from PSG. I know, obviously, Dembele and Kvaratskhelia wasn't in the squad that day, but that's the player who I was worried about. He gave me.
Yeah.
If there's a person who was going to do something, it was going to be Barcola. I would go Kvaratskhelia in this combined 11. I mean, the whole thing of the French media saying, "Are you there?" sort of thing is kind of interesting. I don't know how he played in the Aston Villa home leg, but when he played against Aston Villa when they were playing away in France, he scored the absolute great goal where he skinned the man, smashed it in the top corner, whatever, crossbar, and I'm very surprised how they've managed to get that deal done in January. It seemed like nobody was really fighting them for it. Kind of had a free run at it. So if we're talking Martinelli a couple seasons back, which we're not, but if we were, I'm putting him straight in there because he was amazing. But his decline in form has not been good, but we massively rely on him. this Tuesday.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one. Like you said, we know, Martinelli's, a bit more kicker on. He likes to exploit the space that's left in behind. And especially if, Hakimi's gone walkies, he's going to be able to get in there behind. I think, like we said, the only reason that Martinelli might struggle is, like you said, Arsenal are at home. If they dominate the ball and PSG are, behind the ball, like most teams do these days, he won't have that space. We know he plays with his head down a bit, and that's not necessarily like criticism. A lot of wingers do that. Barcola, his end product has improved a lot, but he's still frustrating to watch. He still gives the ball away a lot. He takes players along a lot, of course. That's what he is, but that comes with its risks of losing it, making bad decisions as a young winger. But I think Kvaratskhelia, I guess he hasn't been in Europe or he's been in Georgia, but he hasn't been in top 5 leagues for that many years. But I think what he did in Napoli is amazing. Completely went from unknown to a superstar. And like you said, I think it's a great pickup for PSG. I'm more than happy to have him in, and I guess we'll see what he can produce. Just quickly before we end it, I do have the PSG lineup for the Nice game today, and they've gone extremely strong, which they asked in the press conference, they asked Luis Enrique about rotation, and he kind of just gave you the kind of normal manager answers of we'll see, we take the games one by one. But the lineup today is Donnarumma, Marquinhos, Hakimi, Pacho, and Mendes. So you'd expect that is the back 5 that will be playing again in 4 days. Vitinha, Neves, and Ruiz, which again is the midfield 3 you'd also be expecting to play in 4 days. And the front 3 of Kvaratskhelia on the left, Dembele up front, and Doué on the right. So I guess we could read into it into a couple of ways. Either he's gone with the 11 which is going to play, and Doué is going to be that guy on the right, or Barcola just needs a rest. And I'm quite surprised to see that. I thought we'd see Zaire Emery in there, and maybe Beraldo at the back, and give these players. I know they need fitness. Maybe they won't all play, but that's at least 6 players. There's only 5 subs who are going to be playing 90 today, and again they're going to want them for the full Arsenal game. So I think they'll be praying for no injuries.
Is that a league game? Yeah.
Yeah, they're playing.
They've already got it wrapped. They've already got it wrapped up as well. So it's not even like
it must have
they're unbeaten though, aren't they? So
I suppose.
Probably wants that.
It's interesting because in the interview they asked him about the unbeaten thing, and he said he doesn't care. Obviously, I guess managers all care at heart. You don't want to lose a game regardless of if it's for invincible or not. But I don't know. I'm a bit surprised. I guess you want to keep the players fit. You want to keep the rhythm going. But to have 10 out of 11 starters, with Doué being the only one, is you're going to see if they've got any injuries. And I'm sure Arsenal fans and Arteta are going to be watching along to make note of anything. But I think that brings today's episode about the Arsenal and PSG first leg of the UCL. I'm sure we'll probably do an episode next week and analyze what we saw on Tuesday. Unless you guys have got anything to say.
Any cheeky? I know it's a bit early, but any cheeky
predictions? 2-1 Arsenal.
Ooh, yeah. That's it.
Kyle?
I'm going 1-0.
1-0, okay.
Not many goals.
3-1 Arsenal. Saka, Brace, and Odegaard to score.
Odegaard's back on the score sheet. I think it'll be. I think 2-1. PSG they've lost 5 games in the Champions League this year, which is crazy.
That's a lot.
Get to the semi, but the only game they've lost by more than 1 goal was against you guys last time. So they normally keep it tight. They don't they don't get smashed. Of course, you won't in the UCL semis, but it's going to be a close one. And I guess Marcus, I hope you have a good time at the game. I'm sure you'll give us a report on Twitter and that. Go follow Marcus's Twitter after the game. And thank you from me and a goodbye from me and you guys as well.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll see you guys next week. Thank you.
Come on, you Gunners.